Hey, welcome to Ignite Goat Mentality. I am Dr. Karen Walker,
And I'm Charmin Jacobs.
and we are your veterans. I'm the Marine Corps vet over here.
And I am, of course, the Navy vet,
Yeah.
transporter.
And today we are talking a little bit about your igniting your goat mentality around building a winning team and that collaborative mindset. So, being in the military, we had to work on a team a lot of times. But in terms of building that, winning team, a lot of that also has to do with kind of celebrating team achievements. So, how do you celebrate team achievements and those milestones, would you say?
The 1% of movement of success towards your goal, like the small things, right? The small things matter. Like
Mm,
no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And
I
so
like that.
the little things about like getting to know the people that are working alongside of you more than the work that they're doing for you. Let me say that again. Getting to know more about the people that are working alongside of you than about the work that they're doing with you. And
Yeah.
when you do that and you acknowledge those monumental moments that are in people's lives, then they know that you care more about them than just getting work done. And I think that comes from my military mindset of knowing more about the people that were working for me, because if they're thinking about something else, then they're not thinking about the work. And so celebrating their anniversaries, their birthdays, celebrating
I like that.
accomplishments of if they're meeting goal, right? Even if it's 1% of movement, it's still movement, right?
Mm,
It's still movement. So often we think about we go right to the negative. Like when you have a performance appraisal, you say, you did good, but,
mm,
and it negates everything that they said before the but
right.
or however.
Yeah.
So celebrating those small wins is celebrating what's important to the people, the little small things, the small
Right.
things. Always celebrate them.
Yeah, I like how you said that, it's about the people. And I mean, your saying's always great. I think there's like a t-shirt in there to be made. But in terms of, achievements and recognizing that, I was just thinking, the rewards, knowing your people is important to also know how they want to be rewarded because a lot of times, you can't just do a catch-all and be like, okay, we got everybody donuts. It's like, well, but if I'm like doing a workout plan right now and I don't want a donut, right? So knowing like if it's more important to have time off with your family, right? That's about having those conversations with your people and understanding like sometimes a reward is more about time, or it might be more about money, or it might be more about like things to people. So understanding what the value is of a reward for doing a good job, but also achievements being visual. I think I've worked on teams before where you do something and you don't actually ever get to see your work. And so actually like having it visual, like your progress being visual, I think is really important when you work on a team. So if you can find ways to make it visual, like putting it up on a board or like, showing like, hey, we've moved something this far, like seeing the milestones move, that can be really an impact. So every time people come in, they actually see the marker moving. It can really show people milestones. So that's something like
Yeah.
I've done before. Number two is how do you handle disagreements or conflicts within a team?
Difficult
No,
conversations.
yeah, that definitely
Difficult
happens.
conversations with some mediation.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, of course, in the military, you have rank, and so that has its unique challenges, right? I mean, how do you approach that? And then when you leave the military, I mean, navigating that space, right? With supervisors and, now there's no rank. So
Right.
also, navigating that space. So how do you kind of navigate those difficult conversations? What would
Like
you say
looking
is a
at
way?
not the person, don't look at the person and the person's personality, look at the problem. Like, what is the problem? What's the root cause? Now, if the root cause is somebody's personality, then address that. But don't
Right.
look to that initially. Look at, okay, well, how can, like, what is really going on with why we're having this disagreement? Am I not communicating well? What, and then take ownership, right? What can I do in order to make this disagreement, like, make this better?
Yeah, I
What can
like that
I do?
because you don't have control
Because
over the other person. Yeah.
we sure don't. So, and you know did what did I say? How did I say it? Was I not did I not give enough information? Now there are times when you need to set some boundaries, because some people will try to take advantage of you, but you need to establish those, right?
Sure.
When
Yeah.
knowing when enough is enough and not taking on everybody's,
Yeah.
challenges, if you will. So,
Right.
but initially,
Yeah.
especially in this stage that I'm in, is looking at me, because I can only change me.
Yeah, I love that. Just being aware that you can't, despite, how much you want to, you can't affect what somebody else is doing. You only have control over you, even in difficult situations. I'll give an example of something I learned actually in difficult conversations, is getting everybody in the room, because they say there's that like elephant in the room, but a lot of times it's really easy for people to kind of like deflect things that are going on if everyone's not there to defend themselves. So a lot of times you can really put that to an end if you're like, oh, Bob said that. Oh, let's bring Bob in, to the conversation then. And that'll stop those kinds of things happening, because you kind of confront it right away. And you might be like, well, I don't know if I can do that, but especially in the workplace, if you guys all work together, and I learned that actually from a supervisor of mine, and I was like really nervous the first time he did it because we were all on, kind of like that Zoom thing and or like a Teams call, and somebody was like, "Oh, well, so and so didn't bring that to the last meeting." And he was like, "Oh, that doesn't sound like them. Let's call them." And we were all just like, "Hmm." And but sure enough, once they rang, we kind of just verified what had happened, and it was a misunderstanding. But that kind of set the tone because they were like, "Wow, somebody's not going to try that again because you're going to get called to the floor." So it kind of set an accountability tone with the office. So it's just something like you can kind of try to like, bring everybody to the floor, let everybody kind of have their say. Not to say that will always work, but bring
I like that.
everybody, yeah, bring everybody there so everybody has a chance to speak. You're not able to always do that. Number three is, can you give an example of when you focused on we instead of me? So that's that collaborative mindset we're talking about, to work towards being the GOAT, greatest of all time. When have you used, we instead of me? And
Well, I'm
whatnot.
gonna tell you that it was always we in the
Okay.
military. So for 22 years, 5 months, 7 days, it was always we, because I couldn't get nothing done unless it was a we. Because I'm not
Yeah.
a team or a directorate of just me.
Yeah.
I have to. I'm not managing the programs or the different programs. Those are people that are working alongside me to do that, and I just give them the guidance and the tools. And so, coming out of the military, I had, to be very frank, I had to work on like me, because I had to change it to me mentality, because it was my accomplishments that I
Yeah.
had to be able to articulate instead of the team's accomplishments, which was a
That's
challenge.
that's such a good point. I love that you said that because
Yeah.
in the military, yeah, it was about we. Everything is we. And even as women, we just tend to speak more collaboratively about our work. And that's such a good point you brought up is when you now leave the military and you're going into job interviews, you just naturally tend to talk about things in we terms. Like, yes, we did this big project and it was so successful and we, were the best place to work for, the last 10 years. And then the first question they're going to ask you, well, what did you do in that project? And you're like,
Exactly.
oh well, and you're kind of trying to think because it's like you never like thought to like brag about yourself because it's always, in the military, it's like your sailors or your Marines, right? That you couldn't have done anything without them, as a leader. You're always like
One
thinking
team,
about
one
them.
fight.
Right. So when you do leave the military and then you're a civilian, it's kind of like now you have to re-navigate that and think of a little bit of, me in a sense. But I do appreciate you pointing that out. I think when you are doing rewards and recognition, it is important to also make that about like we, right? We couldn't have got here without each other, and
Right.
pointing that out. So I like that. But yeah, when we leave the military, we have to realize what did I do on that mission?
It's a cultural mindset shift.
It is.
It truly is.
So number four, and I know you're gonna have some things to say here, especially your field. How can you demonstrate that you appreciate differences?
By educating, one is to increase your education and awareness, right? About about different cultures and holidays and things of that nature. So
Yeah. So
I have a VA, and I'm going to honor my VA's holidays. Why? Because I would want my VA to holler to 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 honor mine, right?
mhm,
So if there's a holiday that she's not going to be able to be present, we're going to communicate, and that is the day that she doesn't have to do VA work.
yeah,
um a lot of, and also acknowledging, if you're in a workplace, in an establishment, you're working, you acknowledge it. Like being overseas, in Japan, there were a lot of holidays that were celebrated that I was not aware of, that I got
right.
indoctrinated to when I was in the service. So
Sure.
it increased my awareness, which meant it increased my knowledge. And so now I know that when I go to a Japanese wedding, I need to have a lot of money, because you have to give a certain amount of money to the bride and groom. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Because I think that some people, and I don't know if it's fear or just like a hesitancy of the unknown, right? Because I know some people say like, no, 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 I don't see color or I don't see differences. Everybody's the same. And it's like if you don't recognize differences and you don't see differences, you're really like doing a disservice to, people by just like categorizing everybody the same or categorizing like every job the same or everything is the same. Um, in order to build a winning team, you have to be able to have diversity of thought, diversity of people, to be able to build a great team. So I think, yeah, being able to recognize that and learn and expand your mindset, to a collaborative mindset and bring people together and celebrate differences. So I like that you pointed that out, especially me being able to work, globally. That was one of my goals, to be able to reach global and learn more about other businesses in other countries, right? Because like we just kind of get focused sometimes only on the US and we think like, okay, like, we're gonna do this in the US, but it's like there is a global business network and it's so much bigger to understand and learn. And so I think in order to be collaborative and to be able to work with other countries, you have to learn them.
Right.
So really
Exactly.
important. So, and that's what we're trying to do, help everybody here ignite that goat mentality because
Exactly.
if you
Exactly.
don't use it,
Then
you
you
will
lose it.
lose it. So
Yes.
you know where to find us every 2 weeks. We're here, passing this great information. You can find us on our YouTube channel at Dr. Karen Walker Official or any of our social medias at Success After Discharge. And your favorite Ignite coach, Charmin Jacobs. And I'm Dr. Karen Walker. We'll see you again soon. Thanks.
All right. Have a great one.